If you're looking for your next best-selling laser project, stop scrolling because you just found it. These lanterns are stunning, they're versatile, and they are ridiculously easy to make once you know the trick. They are the type of product that can look high-end depending on the materials you use, but they don't take forever to produce, which is exactly what we're going for here. Welcome to part 2 of my Made to Sell series, where I show you how to turn simple designs into profitable product lines. I'll leave a link to the full Made to Sell playlist in the description in case you missed any of the other designs. Now, I know what some of you are going to ask, and yes, the base lantern file is available. That gives you the structure you need, and then you can take that file and create whatever designs you would like for the panels. I'll leave a link to that in the description and in the pinned comments so you can grab it and start making your own beautiful designs. But before you run off and grab it, let's talk about why these lanterns are so powerful as a product line. Lanterns are one of those projects that tick off all the boxes. They are super easy to gift, they are practical, they are versatile and decorative, obviously with all of these different designs. You could do snowflakes in the winter, you could do florals in the spring, or a modern geometric pattern like this one that works all year round. You could even customize them to make some awesome wedding decor or personalize them for a customized gift. And if you use my design, they can be easily disassembled and stored flat so your customers can just tuck them away until they need them again next year. They also come with fairy lights, and fairy lights just make everything a little more magical. Once you add those in, you suddenly have something that's not just pretty panels made of wood, but it becomes a statement piece. So let's run through some of the materials that you're going to need. I am using 1/4 inch birch. Now this is just regular birch, it's not Baltic birch. And this is my go-to material because it cuts cleanly and it's relatively inexpensive, at least in my area, and it holds detail really well. Now you could use MDF for this project, and we will get to the pros and cons of that in just a minute. Now you'll also need, like I mentioned, some LED fairy lights. I like to use the battery powered ones so you don't have cords running from outside the lantern. Now, I do include lights for all of the orders, for all of my customers, but I do not include the batteries. That is on the customer. Now, you also have an optional extra, and that would be vellum. This gives the lanterns a softer glow for the larger designs with the larger cutouts, like this wintry scene right here. So it's really just 2 to 3 simple materials and you are ready to go. And if you're wondering where to grab any of these products, I will link all of the ones that I used today in the description so you can grab them if you're interested. Now, design is where you really make these shine, no pun intended. And the options, they are truly endless. So you can do floral, geometric, seasonal, whatever your customer base is into, you can totally make it. Now, the key is to keep each panel exactly the same. Don't overcomplicate this. You want to keep them identical, and this makes production fast and easy. It also allows the design, so like designs like this with the tighter design, not open designs like this, it allows them to shine on nearby surfaces and kind of cascade the design all over the room. Now, here's the part I love. It's one design with endless possibilities. You change the pattern, you change the season, and you change the vibe completely. If you caught my last video about how to take one file and turn it into multiple products, this works exactly the same way. The base lantern is a design that never changes, and you just swap in different designs and suddenly you've got a whole new product to sell. Now, as you're designing, you want to keep some things in mind like strength and structure. You'll want to make sure you leave enough room around the design for the border so that these tabs, and when I say tabs, I mean these things right here, this is a slotted design. You want to make sure that the design is well inside the perimeter of these slots so that these slots don't become flimsy and prone to breaking. Now, you'll also want to make sure your design has elements that are thick enough that once you cut them, there's not a risk of breaking during transit or during assembly. Don't get carried away with those tiny fragile details. You want bold shapes that will glow beautifully once the light hits them. It's all about that healthy balance between detail and durability. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples. Okay, so when I was designing this wintry scene, this was my first design. So the star is super huge and I felt like it kind of took away from the overall design aesthetic. So I went about making the snowflakes smaller. Now, this one in the top corner, it's a little suspect. This one in the top, whoop, there it goes. It broke. It just proved my point. There's one over here that's also pretty fragile, so it just wasn't going to work, obviously. And so this is the final design that I came up with much sturdier snowflakes, and it seems to be working well. Okay, so that is enough theory. Let's get into the actual designs and let me show you some of these different options that I've made and give you some inspiration. So like I said, you can do snowflakes for the winter, and this has been my #1 seller ever since I started selling lanterns. And they start selling in the fall, and then people actually buy them well into the first quarter because there's still a wintry theme, not just a Christmas theme. I imagine this will be a similar scenario because it's a winter scene, but it's also great for Christmas. And this, because it has a large cutout, I use vellum to, one, create more of a softer glow so you don't have this glaring light shining at you. Also, when you have the fairy lights in there, you can see the cords from the fairy lights, and that's not really the look you're going for. So vellum hides all of that. Then this music lantern. Now this is my second bestseller. This is an evergreen style, and it's great for music lovers. I had a bride reach out to me and ask if I could send her a whole bunch of these. It was for all the musicians in her wedding, and that was the gift she gave them for being a part of her wedding. So they're great, great gifts for music lovers. Now this football design, this is great for this time of year. Now you could even personalize this by putting someone's name and their number on it. And I wouldn't go any smaller with these footballs because there is some finer detail, but you could totally find some room on here to put the customization like I mentioned. And you know what that means? You can charge more for it. Now this is an evergreen style. It's just a geometric pattern. It's very simple, so it creates kind of just an elegant vibe as opposed to something a little more recognizable. And this one will create an awesome glow against the wall when you put the lights into it. Okay, so I've got some other designs for you. Let me swap them out real quick and I'll show you those as well. All right, I've got some new designs for you. So this is obviously pumpkins, and this is great again for this time of year. And if you saw my last video, you know I am super into pumpkins. Then we've got this Christmas tree lantern. So I absolutely adore how this is just kind of a whimsical Christmas tree. This is my third best seller when people are buying for lanterns for Christmas. Then there's this snowman design. Now this is great for winter, so these will also sell through the fall and into Q1 because it's not just for Christmas, it's more of a wintry vibe. And then a couple of evergreen designs. So I mentioned earlier that you can use floral designs for the spring. This would be great for Mother's Day. And you could even add either personalization or some other flowers into kind of some of this negative space just to spruce it up a little bit. Then we've got this butterfly design. This is also an evergreen design. It's great for nature lovers. It's great for butterfly lovers, or honestly, it's just great for spring in general, or even year round, just because it's beautiful. And if you add some colored lights behind it, it really makes the design pop. So if you would like me to make any of these lantern files in individual ready to cut files, let me know down in the comments. Right now, like I said, it's just the base design. So it'll come, blank like this, but so that you can add your own designs. But if you would like any of these individual files, let me know. And I'd also love to know down in the comments which design is your favorite. Are you into the geometric patterns, the seasonal designs, maybe some of the evergreen styles? Drop a comment down below and let me know. Okay, next is cutting and assembly. So let me clear off this space and we will get into that. Okay, cutting and assembly. So cutting on this is pretty simple. Now you're going to want to do some test pieces before you cut out your whole lantern, just to make sure that your design is sturdy enough and that it's turning out the way you envisioned. So I showed you some examples earlier that one did not turn out the way I envisioned and two were not sturdy enough. Now, a couple of things to consider when you're choosing your materials. Now, if you are using plywood, you need to keep in mind that the thickness is going to be inconsistent, not only from sheet to sheet, but across the same sheet of plywood as well. So that means you may have to change the width of your slots. So these slots right here, and then the slots on the base, you'll need to use some calipers to get the thickness of your material and then adjust your slots accordingly. Now, you'll not only need to adjust the width, you'll also need to make sure they are the correct distance from the edge of the lantern. So both on the side piece and on the base. So on my design, now if you're designing your own lantern, you can do it however you want, but on my design, all of the slots are 1/4 inch away from the edge. So as you are using your whatever thickness material you're using, once you resize it, you'll want to make sure that you move it 1/4 inch from the edge. Okay, post-production Monica here. I realized I didn't really explain how to move your slots. So this is specifically in Lightburn. I can't speak to any other software, but what you'll do is once you have your slot width adjusted, you will select the slot and then you'll select the exterior piece. And then you will select the left align or right align, top, bottom align. It depends on which piece you're working on, but you'll align the slot to the appropriate side. Then you want to select the slot you want to move and go up to either the X or the Y coordinate, depending on which way you want to move it, and do plus 0.25 or minus 0.25 in the X coordinate or Y coordinate. Now you're going to leave the number that's there, so wherever it is on the X or Y coordinate, and then at the end of that you just want to do plus 0.25 or minus 0.25, and then the slot will move to the correct distance away from the exterior edge. Hope that helped. Now the beauty of plywood is that it can be left natural. You can paint it, you can stain it, or you can use some really awesome hardwood plywood like walnut or sapele or white oak even, and you can get a totally different look. Now, like I said, you can use MDF for this project. It will make the lantern slightly heavier, which could increase your shipping costs, and it will have to be painted or spruced up in some way. You cannot leave MDF bare. Now, that is going to add time and materials, of course, so it may increase your cost. But you can, the benefit of using MDF is that it's consistent thickness, not only across the sheet, but from sheet to sheet. So you won't have to change your slot, which makes batching so much easier when you're doing it in bulk. And if you haven't seen my video on how to batch like a pro, make sure you check it out because there are some really great nuggets about how to get more done in less time. Now, as far as assembly goes, it is super simple. You just slot the pieces together. There's no hardware, there's no glue, and that means your customers can assemble it quickly and then disassemble it just as easily and tuck it away until next year. So I want you to watch how fast this design comes together. Now, this is obviously already assembled, so I'm going to disassemble it first. You just take these out, take out the other pieces, and you're done. It's just 6 easy pieces. Now, the base is longer on one side than it is the other, and that's because once it's fully assembled, it's a square. So you want to take the long side and you want to put the long or the wide pieces into the slots. Now, one thing while I'm thinking about it is the back obviously has some charring. Now, laser owners know that that's completely normal, but customers don't necessarily understand that. So I include some instructions in with the order, and I tell customers that they can expect some charring, number one, and number two, that part faces the inside of the lantern. That way they don't have some ugly charred bits on the exterior. Now, these tabs are going to be visible once the lantern is fully assembled. So you may want to hit them with some 220 grit sandpaper just to get off some of the char marks. So once you're ready to assemble, you just slot it in just like that. You take the other wide panel, put it on the other side, and then it's just a matter of, this is backwards, slipping on the narrow pieces. Now, you may notice that these pieces are a little bit loose. I did not measure my material before I cut out the base, and it's a little bit wide. But once we get this third piece in, it will add some structure and it'll be just fine. So you've got your third piece in, and then let me show you the last piece. Again, it just slots right in. And then you just pop on your top. And they just slide, the top slides right into these tabs on top. Oh, I always forget this part. You want to make sure you add the fairy lights in first before you put the top on. So what I do is I just unstring the fairy lights, and they'll kind of expand on their own, and you just drop them in, and the fairy lights just kind of take up the entire lantern. And that's what adds the fun, unique glow as the light is cascading onto the wall. So like I said, you pop the top on, and now it is ready to go. So let's talk about finishing touches. Like I said, you can leave the wood bare, you can add a paint or a stain. It all depends on what your brand style is. Now for the designs with the larger open spaces, like I said, I like to use vellum. It adds, or it just diffuses the light a little bit. Now what you can do is, depending on your lantern style, you could add colored vellum. So maybe some red or green for Christmas. When I was at Michael's the other day, I saw that they had some pre-printed vellum, so in like a Halloween style. So if you have a Halloween lantern, you could totally add that to your design. And then bonus, you can cut vellum on your laser. So all you have to do is measure the interior portion of your design, make sure it's not going to interfere with the tabs, and make sure it covers your design completely. And then you can just cut it out on the laser. And then you just take some CA glue and you just dot it onto the back and put your vellum on, and you are good to go. Now, you could also add some pattern ply from Smoky Hill Designs. They have tons of options to choose from. And obviously I haven't tried that, but there is a design that I have. It's kind of like a starry night sky. And I think that would be great with like the wintry scene with the trees and the stars and the snowflakes. I think that would be a great design. So you can totally make your design super unique. You can set yourself apart from your competitors just by leveling up your design and adding something a little extra special. Now, what's next? Oh yeah, let's talk about selling tips, because this is made to sell after all. Now, material costs are relatively low on this one. You basically just have the plywood and the fairy lights. Now, of course, if you're doing paint or stain or the vellum or the pattern ply like we talked about, that's going to increase your cost a little bit. Now, the assembly is dead simple, which I've already shown you. And because all 4 panels are the same, you can cut one big batch out and not have to worry about juggling multiple files. Now, what's going to drive your cost on this one is your time and your machining time, but you can still price them to make a pretty solid profit, and you can even bundle them together for like some seasonal upsells, and that increases your average order value, which we've talked about in some of my previous videos. Now, let's talk about how to actually sell them. I have found that this design sells best online, and that is because it's easy to show how they are lit up. When you photograph them in dim light, it shows how the design will, cascade along the wall or next to a solid surface if you put it next to one. So it's easy to kind of get the gist of what they're all about when you sell them online. When I have tried to sell these at markets, I sell in the daytime. So they lose their effect because you can't see the light, obviously, because it's daytime, and customers just really don't understand their purpose. Now, If you are going to sell these at a market, I highly recommend that you display them in some sort of dark, semi-covered area so that you can really display the fact that they are lanterns and they will light up. And I would definitely highlight the fact that these store flat, that they disassemble and store flat, because customers love when things store flat and they're not taking up a whole bunch of space while they're storing them during the off season. Now, speaking of flat packing makes shipping so much easier and way more cost effective. You don't have to worry about breakage during transit or finding a big bulky box to ship a fully assembled lantern. Now, when you're shipping these, you'll want to take the offcuts of the slots, just these little rectangles, and slide them into the slots. Of course, I can't get them in because I'm filming. So you just want to slide them into the slots just like this, and that helps protect these tabs during shipping. It helps keep them from breaking. I also include a note in the instructions to the customer, and I encourage them to keep these little offcuts so when they store the lantern again for the off season, the tabs are protected and they're not going to break. Now, when you're shipping these, you want to stack the wide panels on the bottom, and then you'll want to stack the narrower panels and then the top and the base along with the fairy lights and then the instructions. And then I like to wrap them in that like stretch packing wrap. You know, it's kind of like saran wrap, and I wrap all of that up so it's nice and tight, and it ensures that the tabs don't break, and you know, it reduces dramatically the risk of anything breaking or shifting or anything like that. Now, then I just pop the whole thing into a bubble mailer and I send it on its way. It is so simple. So that's the breakdown on laser cut lanterns. Simple, flat packed, and best of all, profitable. They are quick to make, they're super simple to ship, and customers love them for all kinds of occasions. Now, if you want to try this out, I've got the base lantern file linked below. It gives you the framework, just the 4 panels, the top and the base, and you can add your own unique design to it. And again, if you would like for me to release any of these individual files, the trees, the snowflakes, the geometrics, let me know in the comments and I will totally make it happen. Now, make sure you poke that like button, poke that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next made to sell project, and I will see you on the next one.